Αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, κυρίες και κύριοι, εκ μέρους του Κέντρου Ερευνών Νοτιοανατολικής Ευρώπης, Ερευνητικού Κέντρου του Διεθνούς Τμήματος του Πανεπιστημίου του Sheffield City College, σας καλωσορίζω στο συμπόσιό μας και σας ευχαριστώ για την παρουσία σας. Θα μου επιτρέψετε να κάνω το σύντομο αυτό χαιρετισμό στην αγγλική γλώσσα, η οποία είναι και η επίσημη γλώσσα του συμποσίου. Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the Southeast European Research Center and our mother institution, the International Faculty of the University of Sheffield City College, to our symposium that focuses on the current migration crisis and its implications for the countries of the so-called Balkan Corridor and implications beyond in Europe. When we first discussed this idea with Suzana Vogt of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung and Professor Keridis of the Navarino Network to hold a symposium to discuss the migration and refugee crisis a few months back, we had the hope that the crisis would be over by the time this symposium will happen, and that we will gather together to examine its aftermath, how to avoid a repetition in the future, and what we have learned from this experience. Unfortunately, as you all know, the crisis is still with us. We are living in the middle of it, and it continues to pose tough questions as individuals, societies, local and national governments, and the European Union try to provide the appropriate responses and find solutions. War, famine, oppressive regimes, and natural disaster have always created migration flows, much so for the past centuries, and of course, Europe has faced the biggest migration crisis during and in the aftermath of World War II, but still today we have failed to create a thorough understanding and the mechanisms that can help us prevent and respond effectively to the current and future crisis. The symposium gathers together scholars and colleagues from the majority of the Balkan Corridor countries, as well as colleagues from the United Kingdom and Germany, and hopes to contribute to the much-needed discussion on the effects of the crisis to each one of the countries and their interrelations, its effect to the European project, and at the same time initiate a discussion on the policy implications of any plan to solve the problem, including, of course, a discussion on the latest European Union decision of March 18 that addresses the issue of the refugee and migrant crisis. We are all looking forward to an interesting and intense debate this afternoon. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the speakers that have traveled here in Thessaloniki in order to be with us today and share their thoughts and experience, to thank the Athens office of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung and the Navarino Network for their contribution to the organization of the symposium, and the Bodosakis Foundation for recording and making the symposium available online for those that could not attend it and for those of you who would like to revisit it in the future. Before giving the floor to Suzana Vogt, a few announcements and requests. First of all, it should be noted that the proceedings of the symposium will be made available, as I said, by the Bodosakis Lectures on Demand website, and will also be published in a written format by the Southeast European Research Center. Also, as you can see, we have a full house today and a good number of very distinguished speakers. So I would like to request all of you to try to remain quiet as possible during the proceedings, and that you address your questions to the speakers in a short way and questions to be point, so that we can facilitate a nice flow the proceedings of the symposium. Thank you once again for your presence here, and I'm now giving the floor to Suzana Vogt, Director of the Athens office of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, who is co-organizing this event. Thank you.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Καλώς ήρθατε. It's a great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung from my side here to this afternoon conference we are having today in Thessaloniki. We as Adenauer Foundation Athens office are always very happy to be here in Thessaloniki, which we try to be as often as possible. I think we are quite living up to this ambition. And I think, again, the room today proves why this is the case. We find such an interested audience every time we have the chance to cooperate with partners from Thessaloniki. And this is, again, on this occasion, a great pleasure for us. Just a quick word on the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. For those who do not know us, we're one of the big political foundations from Germany with an office in Athens, as Nikos has mentioned, since 2012. And our mission is to enhance political dialogue. It sounds a little bit like an easy task, but I think since 2012 we have seen that this is not a given, in particular between Greece and Germany. For us as a German institution with some specific challenges implied, let's say, but also between Greece and other European partner countries. We try to enhance what we are also trying to do today, meaning to bring people together who have an interesting say in topics which are obviously of a European relevance and of a particular challenge for Greece. This is what we try to do, this political dialogue, and we've seen that in particular, of course, not only since last year, but even the years before, that the topic we are trying to tackle today has been of a specific concern, which is the migration and refugee situation. I think many of you are aware that this has already been a challenge for the country, with people arriving here even before the crisis took its first peak last year. And again, and Nikos has mentioned it, I think especially after the EU-Turkey agreement, a lot of questions remain on the table, a lot of open issues remain on the table. And I think in particular when we consider the position of Greece, many of the procedures and the administrative challenges are still not answered. So I think we feel that it's all the more important to discuss these topics here in Greece, to bring international speakers to the country, to have this political and also academic dialogue on the topic, to trigger these exchanges, and well, in hoping to find what we need and what we as Adenauer Foundation and many of the other partners involved, I think, really feel is necessary, meaning a European solution of this crisis, and not a solution which goes down to closing borders. And this is pretty much what we are seeing, of course, at the moment. So we are talking about this fragmented corridor today. The corridor, some of its parts obviously are not that accessible anymore. And in particular, it's Greece who finds itself in this position of being, let's say, somewhere in between this corridor position. And I think it's a great opportunity to welcome, as Nikos has mentioned, speakers from all these countries who have made up this corridor before. So I think we will have an interesting discussion this afternoon to shed light on the challenges of this fragmented corridor. Also from my side, I would like to thank all the speakers who traveled to Thessaloniki to join us for this afternoon discussion here. I would warmly like to thank SEERC, Nikos Zaharis and his great team for the excellent cooperation we have seen, the Navarino Network, with whom we have cooperated before many times here in Thessaloniki. And thanks to all of you for your interest in joining us here today, this afternoon, for staying, hopefully, until the end of this session. And I wish us all a very insightful and interesting afternoon and a lively discussion. Thanks again.